Hi everyone! Today I want to share with you 6 wonderful cut flowers that you may have never heard about before. And I really wanted to make this video because I feel like I see the same flowers mentioned over and over again when it comes to a cutting garden or a flower farming venture. You know, things like zinnias, dahlias, celosia, lilies, gladiolas. And while I love all those flowers and I love to grow them and I love to arrange with them, I think there's also a lot of other flowers that make wonderful cut flowers that just don't get mentioned enough. And I'm not sure if that's because these guys don't photograph that well or whether it's because they're more supporting flowers in an arrangement. But I just wanted to highlight some of these flowers because they're all things that I grow here on our farm, and I think they all bring their own interesting element to an arrangement. So let's get right into the list. So first up is Dara, and Dara is also called false Queen Anne's lace by some, but it's a beautiful lacy umbrella flower with tall stems, and it comes in this beautiful burgundy, purple, and mauve color. It's a member of the carrot family, and it is an amazing reseeder out there in the cutting garden. So once you get a patch of Dara established, you'll most likely have it for many, many years to come, and you won't even have to replant it. So my one tip with Dara, it gets quite tall and it's not that strong all on its own. So if you're planting in a large row or even in a raised bed, I would go ahead and give them 2 layers of floral netting. If you're just planting them selectively in the landscape, I would definitely stake each plant because we wouldn't want them to topple over. They're kind of ruined at that point. But Dara is definitely one to add to the list because it really adds an element, a beautiful sparkle into an arrangement. You know, whether I'm using it for flowers at our stand or maybe I'm working on an arrangement for someone who's paid quite a bit more money for something, tucking in that element of sparkle that someone may have never seen before, I think it's really worthwhile. So next on my list is a beautiful flower called Lambada. And Lambada is the annual version of Monarda, also commonly called bee balm, that probably many of us have growing in our perennial gardens. But what's wonderful about Lambada is that it doesn't suffer from powdery mildew like those perennial types of bee balm that you might have in your garden. Now, this annual bee balm, Lambada, has beautiful whorls of these stacked lavender blooms that have a wonderful, almost herby smell. It kind of smells like oregano, or some people will say it even smells like Earl Grey, but it has that wonderful silvery green foliage, and I just think it's so worthwhile to grow it. Now, the number one thing is that Lambada is a little bit harder to hydrate after harvesting. So I recommend using Quick Dip. So you go ahead, you harvest your Lambada, you put it in the Quick Dip, and then give it a nice deep soak in cool water overnight before you start arranging with it. But you know, I love Lambada too because it adds a lot of bulk to an arrangement. It's quite big around. Think in terms of like a Bells of Ireland. It's very similar to that in some ways, and it really just fills in a bouquet in no time at all. Well, I guess it makes sense since I just mentioned Bells of Ireland that Bells of Ireland is the next flower on my list. And Bells of Ireland has beautiful tall spikes of green bells that can function both as a foliage plant and as a filler flower. Now, the main problem people have with Bells of Ireland is that it can be a little bit more difficult to get it to germinate. So I like to stick my Bells of Ireland seed in the freezer for at least 2 weeks before I'm going to plant it out. Some people will tell you that after you take the seed out of the freezer to go ahead and soak it for a few days. I go ahead and skip that step. But either way, you want to go ahead and sow the Bells of Ireland directly into the garden, and remember, bells of Ireland need light to germinate. So you surface sow the bells of Ireland seed, just pressing it into the soil surface. And then it's super important to keep the seed bed evenly moist. These guys do take a long time to germinate, between 14 and 21 days, and you need to keep that seed bed moist the whole entire time. And while that might seem like a little trouble to go to, it really is worth it. And I would also recommend way overseeding your bells of Ireland. It's much easier to way overseed the bells of Ireland and have to thin them later on than to not seed enough and be disappointed come spring. So next on my list is a flower that's used for the seed pods instead of the flower. And this is a flower called the giant poppy pods. And the flowers actually are absolutely stunning, but unfortunately, they just won't last in the vase. The petals just tend to fall off in the matter of a day. So instead, we want to go ahead and let the seed pods form and use them as a fun textural element in an arrangement. And you can also use them dried. They're fabulous dried as well. So to sow these poppies is the same as any other type of poppy. You just surface sow the poppy seed into the earth and they will take off. They're so easy to grow. Just remember, don't bother to pick the flower. They won't last. Grow them for the beautiful, huge pods. So next on my list is sweet peas. And I think growing sweet peas is so worthwhile for this reason. Well, number one, the scent. We all know that they smell amazing. But the other thing is, I think that sweet peas are very nostalgic for a lot of people. I don't know if maybe 50 to 60 years ago, it was a lot more common for people to grow sweet peas, and if then they went out of style. I'm not sure what happened there, but I often hear people say over and over again that the sweet pea reminds them of this person's garden or this person in their life. So I think it really evokes a nice memory for a customer. And as I said, there's nothing like the smell of a sweet pea. So here's the thing that I think about sweet peas. I have heard some really crazy advice on how to get sweet peas to grow. So instead of sharing kind of all this off-the-wall information, let me share with you what's worked for me. So I go ahead and soak the sweet pea seeds in lukewarm water for an hour or two before planting. Now you can use root trainers. I never have invested in root trainers. All I do is use really deep cell packs. And then you want to be sure and give the sweet peas something to grow up and hold on to. So something like a trellis is what I use, or you can use cattle panels. Have them grow up there. That's beautiful as well. Now, the most important thing when sweet peas start to bloom is that you have to keep harvesting them. You really need to harvest a sweet pea almost every other day, if not every day, if you can, so that they keep producing flowers for you. Because if you go, say, a week or definitely 2 weeks and you don't harvest your sweet peas, it's going to form sweet pea pods and seed, and it's going to think its job is done and die. So you really need to keep on top of the harvesting of the sweet pea in order to keep the blooms coming. So last on my list is Love in a Mist, also known as Nigella. And I love Nigella. I love the way it looks. I love that it comes in that true blue color. And you know what I love more than anything else? It's crazy easy to grow and it reseeds itself. So what's not to love about that? But if you've never seen Love in a Mist before, it's a really tough plant and it has feathery foliage and it has star-like blooms that come, as I say, in blue, white, and pink. And you really get double your money when it comes to Love in a Mist because you get the flowers, which look wonderful in bouquets, especially in the spring. But then later on, you get those gorgeous seed pods, and you can use the seed pods in fresh arrangements, or you can use them dried. And I am always using Nigella seed pods all through the winter season in craft projects or things that I might sell for the fall at our stand in particular. Now, it couldn't be easier to grow Love in a Mist. You just put this seed in the earth. It does need darkness to germinate, so you want to go ahead and cover it. But once it gets established, as I say, it will come back year after year after year. And I almost didn't include love in a mist on this list because I do think it's a more common cottage flower, but I just don't feel like I see it that much in cut flower arrangements, and it really does hold up wonderful. So I hope you'll give it a try. Well guys, I hope that list was helpful, and I hope it was helpful to see some of the flowers growing here on our farm. I think I could make the list about 4 times longer, but these are the ones that I've been growing and that I will continue to grow in the years to come. They're worth the space, a lot of them reseed, and I think once you get the hang of what the seed needs, then you really will have success. So just, as kind of a side note, if you're ever reading something and you feel like, oh, I don't know if I can do that, or that sounds a little bit too hard, try. You might discover that it's not that hard, or maybe you just need to take a piece of the information and that will work for you in your area, your climate, your weather, your zone. But don't be held back when something says that it's more challenging. Quite often, you're even more rewarded when you make the extra effort. So guys, thanks so much for watching this video. If you found it helpful, would you do me a big favor and subscribe to my channel? When you do things like the video, leave a comment, or share with a friend, it helps me out so much to continue to produce more of this content for you. So I want to wish you a wonderful day out there in the garden, and until next time, happy gardening. Bye!